If you walked into one of Seoul's oldest, densest residential neighborhoods right now, narrow streets, shared walls, open-air food markets running every day of the week, an infrastructure that predates modern pest control entirely, you would expect a serious rat problem. The conditions are about as favorable as they get. Warm buildings, food odors on every corner, waste from hundreds of households packed into a single block. What you would actually find is something that does not fit the pattern. No poison, no traps, no bait stations anywhere in sight. And in households following traditional Korean kitchen practice, no rats. Not in 30 years. Not in some of them. In all of them. This is not luck. This is not better infrastructure. This is a method. The global rodent control market is worth $28 billion per year. A significant share of that revenue comes from rat poison, the broadifacum-based bait products that households buy, place, and replace every 2 to 3 weeks. Because the rats come back. There's a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with the product failing. Rat intelligence studies at Johns Hopkins University established in the 1980s that rats are rapid associative learners. A rat that encounters a trap and survives will avoid that trap model in similar shapes for the rest of its life. Commercial rat populations in urban areas have developed behavioral resistance to standard trap configurations over the past 40 years. They adapt, they learn, they route around the intervention. Rat poison addresses this differently. The rat does not survive to learn. But broadifacum, the most common active ingredient in rodenticide products, persists in the environment for over 500 days. Any animal that consumes a poisoned rat, a cat, a dog, a hawk, or a barn owl receives a secondary lethal dose. Raptor populations in urban neighborhoods across North America and Europe have declined sharply in areas with high rodenticide use. And a rat that dies inside a wall does not disappear quietly. You know what it leaves behind. There is also the question of what you are placing inside a kitchen, 2 feet from where you prepare food. Something is very different about how Korean households in the most densely populated neighborhoods on Earth handle this. In Korea, there is a concept called densest, the accumulated practical intelligence of dense urban living. Seoul has been one of Asia's most densely populated cities since the Joseon dynasty was established in 1392. For over 6 centuries, Korean households have developed kitchen knowledge not as abstract tradition, but as functional necessity. In dense urban conditions, there is no room for solutions that almost work. You cannot afford a rat problem when your kitchen shares a wall with another kitchen, and that wall with another beyond it. Densest is not a philosophy. It is the distilled result of hundreds of years of households making decisions under pressure. What survives in Korean kitchen tradition survived because it worked. What did not work was abandoned. The methods that have persisted for 6 centuries did so because they actually solved the problem, not temporarily, but structurally. The Korean approach to rats does not target the individual rat. It targets the rat's ability to navigate. Here's what most people do not understand about rats and their relationship to your kitchen. A rat's olfactory system contains over 1,000 different receptor types. A human has approximately 350. Rats experience their environment almost entirely through scent. They map territory through smell. They locate food through smell. They detect danger through smell. And critically, they navigate using pheromone trails left by previous rats. A trail laid by one rat becomes a chemical road for every rat that follows it. When one rat finds a safe entry point into your kitchen, the trail it leaves is a permanent signal to every rat in the surrounding area. The trail says, "This path is safe. Food and water are here. Return via this route." Commercial rat poison kills the rat. It does not remove the trail. The next rat follows the same trail to the same entry point and finds the same kitchen. This is why rodent infestations cycle every 3 to 4 weeks in untreated buildings. You are not fighting rats. You are fighting a navigation system. Korean households understood centuries before Western pest control existed that the solution is not to kill the navigator. Destroy the map. The plant that makes this possible is SSUK, Korean mugwort, known botanically as Artemisia princeps. It grows wild across Korea and has been part of Korean kitchen culture for longer than written records exist. It appears in essasukguk soup, in esukjeon pancakes, in traditional Korean medicine. And in Korean folk practice, bundles of dried suk were placed at entry points to homes and kitchens as a matter of course. The pest control industry has known since at least the 1980s that olfactory saturation is a more effective long-term rat deterrent than chemical kill. The research on monoterpene compounds and rodent sensory disruption exists in academic literature dating back decades. It does not appear on the shelf at your supermarket because a dried herb bundle costs less than $1, lasts 3 months, and cannot be branded, packaged in quarterly refill sizes, or sold at a margin that sustains a distribution network. The solution to your rat problem is not undiscovered. It is simply unprofitable to distribute. Suk's essential oil contains 1.8 cineole, also called eucalyptol, at concentrations of 22 to 24% of the total oil composition. 1.8 cineole is a documented olfactory disruptive compound with established insecticidal and repellent properties across multiple species. At the concentrations produced by steeped or burned SUK in a confined kitchen space, the volatile compound load exceeds what a rat's olfactory system can filter. It does not register as strong smell. For an animal navigating entirely by scent, it registers as sensory overload, the equivalent of trying to read a map while someone holds a flashlight directly in your eyes. The rat does not learn to avoid this kitchen because it was harmed there. It does not return because it cannot navigate there. That distinction is permanent. The method has 2 stages. The whole method comes down to 2 things. Dried sasuk, available at Korean grocery stores for under $2, and plain white vinegar. The first layer is a barrier. Dried sasuk steeped in white vinegar for about a day lets the acetic acid pull the volatile compounds, including 1/8 cineole, out of the plant and into the liquid. That infused vinegar gets applied along whichever edges and openings a rat would actually use to get in. Any gap wide enough for a rat's skull, which, since it's the narrowest part of its body, is really any gap at all. Unlike a scent spray that fades in days, the acetic acid bonds those compounds to the surface itself, so the effect holds for weeks before it needs a refresh. The second layer is placement. Small bundles of dried sasuk stems, tied off and set near the entry points identified in the first step, reinforce the barrier right where a rat would try to squeeze through and get swapped out every so often as the scent fades. If rats are already active in the kitchen, there's one thing worth doing first: wiping down the surfaces and floor edges with the same sazuk vinegar before anything else goes up. That erases the pheromone trails already laid down. Without that step, new rats can still trace old routes right up to the edge of the barrier. Clear the map first, then close the entry points. What's left behind is a kitchen that, as far as any rat is concerned, leads nowhere. If this is changing the way you think about rat control right now, hit subscribe. Every week this channel covers methods like this that actually solve the problem instead of selling you another product that almost works. Once the barrier is in place, the daily habit is simple. Once a week, a small pot of water gets brought to a boil with a bit of dried SUK in it and left to simmer for a few minutes. The steam carries the volatile compounds through the kitchen air. This is a practice rooted in Korean hanyak tradition, the medicinal burning or boiling of SSUK to clear a space. It costs almost nothing and refreshes the olfactory environment of the entire kitchen without requiring you to spray every surface again. The weekly SSUK steam also addresses something the spray cannot: the ceiling, the upper corners, and the ventilation areas where rats rarely travel, but where their sensory environment still forms. A kitchen whose entire air chemistry contains SSUK compounds is a kitchen a rat's navigation system cannot map, not at floor level, not at any level. One approach to rats is reactive and industrial. You wait until evidence appears, deploy a product, and manage the ongoing cycle of return. You are not solving the problem. You are participating in it. The other approach is structural. You change the environment so thoroughly that the problem cannot establish itself in the first place. Korean urban kitchen practice did not develop a philosophy about pest control. It developed a practice. For 600 years, in neighborhoods where rats should have thrived, the practice worked. Not because of luck, because 1.8 cineole at sufficient concentrations is something a rat's olfactory map cannot process. And a kitchen whose surfaces and air chemistry are treated with SSUK is a kitchen whose entry points lead, as far as any rat is concerned, nowhere. Your kitchen was never an easy target. You were simply fighting a navigation system with a product designed to kill one navigator at a time. Hit like if this helped. The Korean oven fermentation method, no chemicals and no fumes, is on screen right now.